First of all, I'd like to say that there's no fire alarm scheduled for this evening, no practice or drill. So if you do hear a fire alarm, please, it will be real, please make your way downstairs as you came up and follow the signs of the running person on the green. They go downstairs and take you out of the front door where there's an assembly point that's clearly marked. If those stairs are blocked by any way, through fire or whatever, there is an alternative staircase that runs along the other side of this wall here, and there's an assembly point down that takes you to another fire exit. Please do not use the lift in that fire, and if you are in need of any other emergency, the toilets are just out of this door here to the right and immediately on your left. I'm now going to pass an eye to the electronic wizardry over here.
I'm here to speak about some travelers issues. Apparently,
It's still looks as if we're not in it.
Were you registered to speak? Your name is?
Chaz.
We will possibly
I got invited to speak.
be happy to move forward with public participation.
I didn't know you were wanting to speak.
Even
there is a place where bear with me.
The clerk is otherwise engaged. And the first person that we have on the list is Margaret Oakley. Please could you try to keep your talk to 3 minutes?
Yeah,
We
I
have
have a friend of
3 minutes time, and that will enable everybody who wishes to speak tonight to be able to get their 3 minutes.
CH
Thank you, Mark.
AO
Thank you.
SS.
Yeah.
Pierce.
I attended the last county
ERC.
council meeting.
What do you want to speak about?
Travelers issues.
But there's got to microphone.
Okay.
And disabilities as well.
I'll do that.
I'll start again. I attended the last county council meeting where the issue of the public spaces protection law was discussed. It seemed, rightly or wrongly, that the councillors had a degree of resistance and support for this consultation, which centred around the word control. I find this extraordinary, because control is what is vitally needed, and it is lacking, especially when it comes to illegal cameras. For example, in Kenard Moor Road, which is quite close to where I live, we now have 40 plus caravans. And the area, which was once beautiful and tranquil, a piece of countryside, has now been totally destroyed. The river bank has been clogged through the next week. The river bowls have gone to be placed by rats, which was open there during the daylight. Hedges have been ripped up, the river polluted, trees have been cut down, tyres have been burned, spreading toxic fumes. Birds no longer nest there. When I first came to live here, this lane was used by many people. Children learned to fish in the river, schools took children down the nature walks. Now it's a no-go area. No dog walkers go there anymore, because dogs have been poisoned by ingesting crack cocaine. And no local people go there anymore. There is drug dealing, prostitution, arson, a caravan was set ablaze only last week. Not to mention death. And this place desperately needs protection, and it is quite obvious that control is needed here. So what makes the word control so difficult to accept? Without control, there is anarchy, and the people of Glastonbury, the electorate, deserve better. Because their level of tolerance is rapidly diminishing, and so antisocial behaviour has increased, and so is crime. And those are the principles that actually things could be fixed. 4 years ago, I stood on the Prairie Spot, talking about this, and I said then that all it takes is for evil to flourish, is for good men to be born. And look at the world. And the situation we now face is worse. Councillors are elected by the people to serve the people, and not to impose their personal views on legislation. And I do hope that it is not the case with this council, and that you will support the public consultation which is being put forward by members of council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next we have Claire Rosary speaking about Traveller's Right.
Temptation of what happened years ago. I'm here again tonight because we're up against another war. And the Holocaust remembrance was 2 weeks ago. The FFT, the Travellers Association, the Travellers Movement, for Travellers' Rights is going through the Houses of Commons and the Houses of Lords yet again, and they were ping-ponging back and forth with laws, regulations and acts. Until those acts are put through by Her Majesty, God bless her, things are basically should and shouldn't be put through. So this is why I go up again. There have been eviction orders, notices put on the caravan now on Benton Oxford Way. Right. I don't have it in writing, I have it in the understanding that there's an eradication going on in Somerset and Glastonbury, and apparently, come June, we are supposed to be out of this area. Now, there's 4 groups, and I've said this before. We've got Somerset County Council, Reading District Council, Glastonbury Council, and police. My point being is there's quite a few things that go through and slip under the net, and Glastonbury Town Council is not getting its final say. For example, Papa John's. That's written up on the media. I read that it was put through by Reading District Council. Then there's another issue. Money still being not spent in the right way. So that needs to be reevaluated and relooked by all 4 people. Hopefully that will be put into place. FFT came down and apparently was supposed to amend the District Council about a month ago on the situation with unlawful encampments. But this is where I go back to the laws, rules and regulations act. Because we've won a few, not just on our right to protest and our right to have our say, but there's also been acts going through at this present time that have not been finalised on all the regulations of unlawful encampments, van dwellers, horse-drawn people, and caravan dwellers. So, again, where is the money that has been promised for years? Where are planning applications? That's number 2. Number 3, if we've got private land owners stating that they are more than willing to put in anything between 10 and 15 plots on their private land for van dwellers, why hasn't this been proposed? Why hasn't this been put forward? Then we have the application of park and ride land. Part of that was put forward to amend it, and also proposals, from my understanding, that Somerset County Council and also Glastonbury for another X amount of plots to be put into that space. I understand that we have an environmental issue, but we now have a housing issue as well. This is why I come back to the fields with the big iron gate down on farmland, which is now used for the carnival. We lost the Fairfield. That's gone. A little bit dishonourable in my eyes, they named it Kingsfield, which is far appropriate. Because going back and looking at the history of that land, that was originally handed over to the Romney when they were working this land to all the estates around here. We came over, we worked the land, we put the money into this town, into the community. We worked the factories down the Red Brick. Where did we park up? Riders Mound, and the fields around the back. we work the land. That goes back centuries. The same as Woking Hole paper mill. You look at the old photographs in town. We came into town and dropped off the goods for the people, horse straw. If you buried your dead with respect, who did you call on? The horse straw, because legally it was over the horse straw going back to the undertakers who would put the body on the horse's cart to bury it into the land. So, I come again. Please talk with Mendick and Somerset County Council. Before this goes forward again, you need to find a solution. I need to know what is being put into place. FFD and the people of this country need to be known what's put into place. Not just Glastonbury, it's right across the board. If the government is going to be doing this, where do those rules and regulations stand with you as a whole? I know you're up against this, so we all are. But if you're going to take away X amount of people's homes, all they've got their possessions, very little money that they've got, then they can't go and work, so they've got no home. Then it makes homeless, then homelessness gets heavier. So we've got even more problems. It's a never-ending spiral. So I would ask again, please reconsider what you do before you evict these people. You must find sites, and the sites need to be found soon. Because it ain't going to go away, it's getting bigger.
I think if you're happy, I'll stop there because other people will just speak.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you very
That's
much.
fine. I'll write it in the letter.
Thank you. So, next on my list, I have Terry Napoli, London President.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's just to give the councillors and the council a little bit of background. I've been asked by Mr. Martin Thomas to sat there to have a look at the land, the road which goes to his house. I've been down there and I've tried to get Somerset County Council to do something about the road. The road is the link road from Worcester Grove to Mere Road, which the Mere Road was closed off, as we know, a little while ago for subsidence, and a lot of traffic went down through the little skit of a road there. What is that road called?
It's Middle Grove. Thank you for listening, councillors, by the way.
Anyway, I'll let Martin take over because to get Somerset to do anything is very difficult. As you know, in street we've got a hollow, we've got a dip, which my colleague Liz has been on about and myself for the last 2 years. Nothing has happened. So I mean, we can have a go at it, but if we can get Glastonbury Town Council to give us a little bit of oomph, then that's what we're aiming to do this evening.
Thank you. I know that they're arranging a caravan trip to have a look at this impressive dip in the road.
I'll hand over to Martin.
So, Martin Thomas, talk to you.
Thank you, councillors. Yes, as Terry said, I do live down there. I do feel guilty almost for mentioning it because, you know, it's the entrance to my house and what have you. And it is painful for my family and what have you. The road is, since Mere Road was closed, everybody came down through Middle Road, which is only a small road. Pulled, in the last year or so, I probably pulled 6 cyclists out of the ditch. It's destroyed. Mentioned it to the highways time and time again. They'll come and put a little bit of tarmac in. I'm not expecting a full repair of the road, but, you know, a couple of guys for a day, you know, just to make it safe. I pulled cars out of the ditch, I pulled fire engines out of the ditch, it was bad then, but since the new road was closed, everybody came down through not my road, Village Road, and it is annihilated. And a little bit of help, a bit of tarmac would be absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much, and we will follow up with Terry as well. Thank you very much for raising that issue. Next on my list, Stephen Powers, election process.
Thank you very much.
Councillors, good evening. Sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice, so I might dip out a bit. I'll give you some of these. Fred, I'm talking about a rather boring thing, which is the process and procedure that your clerk and perhaps the council has taken in order to call the by-election, or in this case not, in the St Benjamin following the resignation of Green Councillor Brian Alton. Now, I'll start by saying, actually wholly support your aim of not having a by-election.
It's not our aim to not have a by-election.
Well, therefore, why is this happening? So, not only is the sort of Facebook post that you guys put out pretty discouraging to anyone who would want to call it, I find it wholly troubling that the clerk has contacted electors who have registered their interest to call a by-election and almost pleaded with them to withdraw. That's totally inappropriate for this council, particularly its staff, to take a view as to whether an election should or should not be called, no matter how honourable that desire is. This has happened once that was brought to my attention on Facebook by another. So electors' rights, if they so wish to call a by-election in this town. You'll be very well aware that legally this council is not up for election for another 14-15 months until the orders go through Parliament, which won't be some weeks. We fully expect they will do. But if electors wish to call an election, they should not be discouraged from doing so, particularly by employees. Now, if you guys as council have incentive, they're fine going shady. But the council itself and its employees should not take a view, and that's clearly an way against any procedural process that should be followed. I've heard much things that was on advice to Steve Lake. Rubbish. That is not the way it should be conducted. Now, I appreciate ordinarily you would have to wait a month to get an answer. If you wait a month, we'll be on hold for that election if it's so called, so perhaps you may wish to address that issue tonight, or not. But if you want to act, just you act fairly quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you'd like to, I'll ask the clerk to respond.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Am I on? Am I speaking? Is it loud?
I think the button is okay.
Let's try again. Not on. That sounds better. I think I'm not good. Your Worship, I was responding to a conversation I had with the monitoring officer at the District Council, who guided us on two fronts. One is the almost certainty there will be an election on May the 5th, and the close proximity to a by-election, and that date would likely be that the new person into the position of town councillor would have only 1 month to serve during the time of her term. So the concern from the district council was the enormous amount of additional pressure on their staff at the time when elections are being called. But the concern on my part is that it costs the town council a significant amount of money to host an election. And the last one we held cost us £3,500. This, because it wouldn't be in line with any other election, is likely to cost more. So, under guidance of the monitoring officer at the District Council, I then undertook a freedom of information request to ask who had been in contact. And if you read the letter, it doesn't ask anyone to change their views, it is simply informing that there is a process which, calculating it could mean that whoever comes and sits around this table could be at a cost of £148 per day for the short time that they will be at the council. So I did what I did under the guidance of others.
Thank you. Could you just clarify, did any of the town council members, elected members or voted members advise you to do this action?
Again, Your Worship, absolutely no way, because that was the guidance I took from the District Council, was not to involve councillors, because it would be seen to be interfering with the electoral process, and that's not what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. So, Stephen, I think it is fair to say that none of the councillors sat around this table wish to stop any by-election being called, and 10 good residents and true of the ward wish to put forward a petition to stimulate a by-election will be had. I have only just talked to the clerk about it this evening, but I think that the actions that have been undertaken have been done with goodwill to save the electorate, the council taxpayer of Glastonbury the extra cost of electing a member who will be elected into a council in Perth for 1 month. And I think that Gerard may have been working in the interest of the electorate at heart to inform those people who may wish to for election of this potential without preventing them from actually or encouraging them to withdraw, but just to let them know the fact. Because not everybody understands the process, as I'm sure you're very well.
Very well, so, just to reiterate I totally agree with you. An election would be silly. The point is, there is a process to which you have to follow, especially in such a fragile thing as called an election. And one resident in particular feels pretty intimidated by the fact that they feel they've been pressured not to have an election. That's totally inappropriate. I think, although totally accept its good intentions and well wishes, and there's nothing untoward with councillors trying to get involved, doesn't detract from the fact that we're wrong. And perhaps you should do something about it very soon, otherwise there's no way of remedying that situation.
Notwithstanding that the councillors have no input.
I'm sure they didn't.
No, I'm asking you to accept. I'm telling you.
I think I'm not an electorate, it's nothing to do. In that sense, whether you did or didn't, I'm sure you didn't. The ones of you I know very well people who wouldn't. The point is that if you're going to do something about it, please do it soon. One lady in particular does feel very put upon that perhaps she's going to do something wrong and is quite concerned about it. So, I think maybe a press release or something needs to happen before.
I think what the council will do will be to address the situation in the way that you suggest. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, John.
So finally, we have Chaos Pierce, talking about your farmers' issues.
My friend's going to help me if I lose my speech. So I'm talking about carrying water here, because someone I've mentioned that we started doing the line up. There's very few bad people there now. Who've been making it a home. It's something that I feel strongly about. Unfortunately, get moved on. I wouldn't be able to survive on my own. Personally, with my disability, it's been very difficult to constantly move on, constantly targeted, constantly being a target of everything. I was a video, I was a graphic developer, and I have computer. Still, I'm getting the computer set up in my caravan. The inside of the caravan is beautiful, the outside's not beautiful. We invite all the locals to come back now. We've been cleaning them up. We've been cleaning up. We've hired, think about hiring a stick to go to clean up all the trash that was left by the old residents. And we just want to be left alone. We just want to live our lives just the same as everybody else. Just the same as every single person on this table. Every single person on every single person on this table, you've lived next to a shifting but all people in lives in a house. Sometimes we're not exclusive from that. It just seems if we have a shifting, we're all tired of the same brush. And if I have a penny for every single time someone says to me, well, they ruined it for you, I'll be rich. I'll probably be able to afford the town hall. It's my home. I've only recently moved there. A lot of people recently moved there, obviously, with the thing going on. We are moderated who moves in. We're not just. I know we don't own anything from the lights over here. I don't think that we have been. There's a few people down there that aren't close enough. They don't even know this is going on. I didn't know this was going on. I only got invited here to discuss things like this sometimes. At the assembly rooms, we invited me here to speak. I'm terribly grateful for that. There's people down there that live the same as you guys, and we just want to be left. We just want to be left alone. And we're out of sight. We're not the same as people behind where we've just mentioned the other places. I mean, we are. We're all the same people. Every single person on this table is doing the same thing, and we're all going to leave this planet with the same thing. There's a lot of people that have been ending their lives because of the evictions, because they get tired of the same brush. I know of 2 people who died recently from an eviction behind the exact area. Because they were quite happy with it as well. But they got evicted because you know the people's problems. I don't know politics and logic. I can't speak from the English, Belfast. If we get this is my home. And I love living like that everywhere. I don't know who that's my home. I've built a little lovely deck. If someone comes down and checks it out, people have started coming down to fishing here. We'll build them a fishing here. You know, to fish. We want people to come back. We want the locals to come back now. So we've started cleaning it up. We've tidied up all the trash, or some of the trash. There's a lot going on up there. So we've totally get pulled up. And we're stopping the fly tippers as well. There's been some fly tipping issues with the farmers. So we're going against that.
I'd like to add, so maybe a few years ago, the statement made first would have been true. I think there was a lot of trouble down there. But since I've been there, a year and a half, it's been getting a lot better. We have zero tolerance with hard drugs. We try and help those people, but if people are trying to move there, we make it very clear we don't want that energy there. And what people don't realize is a lot of people live like this because of their mental health, and they can't live in a house. Quite a few people have schizophrenia, and things like this, and they can't live. And if they are moved on, the only reason as well it's become busy is because the travellers from the other side haven't been given somewhere to go, so they have to move on to this, and then it gets crowded. And you have to think these people aren't just going to disappear. This is their home in Glastonbury. They're going to move somewhere else, probably less. It'll be in a worse place most likely. It's not going to get rid of the situation. Something needs to happen. There needs to be some sort of land or something really. I don't know. We need to think out of the box and have a new idea for this, because we can't just erase this. It's some sort of culture and it's staying. It's been around for longer than this council has, and it will resume most likely for longer than the council will be here. So that's all I have to say.
Just to add to this as well, I can't speak for everyone on this side. I'm happy to pay rent. If there was like a decent site that would offer us a little outside space to grow food, our own little space, we're happy to pick up stuff. We're happy to do all of your stuff that you guys do. I don't know how well it is.
Thank you very much. Let's ask a question. Could you just remind me where it is you're staying?
Kenneth Port Road. It's just by the river. Newcastle. It's just by the river. The Kenneth Port Road.
Yes, thank you. So, well, thank you very much. It's very, very interesting for the council to hear two sides of the story this evening. Thank you very much. Thank you for speaking to us. So, we now have 7:30. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Just a very quick one, because I believe that we used to have, and still have, an appointed traveller and gypsy officer at Bendit. Am I correct? Is that correct?
It's a county council.
County council. Right, county council. We ought to have them here to find out what liaison is being done. Because that's the person that can come out, listen to everyone that we've heard from tonight, and listen to the residents, and be able to liaise and bring back solutions. Once we have councillor-isation from the county council, he does sterling in working with the MAG group and the multi-agency group, that I think there still needs to be, there obviously are issues, and once this continues, there's still therefore the need for us as councillors to be completely and fully informed. So that's what I'd like to see happen.
I don't too open up to debate for too much, but I understand it's a very important issue that's affecting the town at the moment. I'm very happy to take Councillor.
Same as you live in your house. It's my life. If
Councillor.
someone takes that, we get evicted. I'm not even mine.
But the town council own land. Why don't town council make the land that they own available?
We've been asking that for the last 9 months.
Well, I've been asked, don't worry, I've been banned from writing to the council. I can't email them. I'm banned from emailing the council. Because I keep asking the same question. But the reason I keep asking the same question is because I never get a sensible answer.
I'm not sure anyone.
Well, whatever you're not sure, I'm telling you.
Well, let's say the topic. Is anyone been banned?
No way, Your Worship, no.
No, Somerset County Council.
Sorry.
I'm Stone Alton and Mandy Stone Alton. I understand the situation, but Brian and Mandy Stone Alton, if I'm understanding rules and regulations in this council, lived in this community when he was elected. And if I'm right in saying he should have been allowed to finish what he was doing before the re-elections, which is what you were saying. And also, those two were the main representatives from Glastonbury Town Council that came down and helped her and spoke to her. We've got no one now because it's gone. We need a representative from you guys, like you said, to come down and help us. We've had, like I said before, we've had suicide because of this. We've got friends and family and it's work.
Recently, two suicide directly because they've been evicted and they couldn't handle it. And I'm not losing people's lives. People are killing people. And that's not British way, that's not
Mental health
way.
has gone through the roof like you
Trust me, I can
know.
guarantee you, when you pass over at the end of this life, if anyone in this room has been responsible for ending someone's life, even indirectly in someone's life, they're going to go through everything they can do. And more. Please, let's live. Let's live like this. Just, you know, if you're all right.
I know it hurts. It really does hurt.
Or we want you to come to us if there's issues, if we're too trashful, if we're too problematic. Come to the caravans and the doors, tell us the problem, and we'll fix it.
Well, no, I thank you for coming to speaking to us tonight. It's very important that you tell us that. Thank you very much. The council needs to hear all sides of all the issues that are in this country. I'd just like to say that Councillor Brian Houghton didn't need to resign from this council, but did take it upon himself to resign. So,
He was under so much pressure.
pardon?
He was under so much pressure. He just lost his home as well.
Under pressure from who?
And everything.
Well,
You know, I don't need to mention what was going on. You know what was going on, and basically he will improve his council up
Is that a person that's
on the situation that went ahead. There was also, if I am rightly, he was fighting for a situation that was supposed to be going back to Mendip Somerset County Council on behalf of himself and two other council members in Glastonbury, and it got pulled out from underneath him before it even happened. And it was a very, very important matter, and I shouldn't be bringing that up in public conversation. It's personal stuff. And also, those two letters, no disrespect, but I know we've got an election coming up, but with the situation that's going on, it shouldn't be put on public media. If you're going to have an election, sort that out, but don't put letters up. Don't do it. It's wrong. I'm going to leave anyway, because I think you need to take this up with Brian and Mandy.
thank you, Claire. Well,
He is getting ombudsman involved in this.
Is that the person that gives caravans support?
He's the one that came down to the site over the summer. Sat there, spoke to people. Had something to eat, had a cup of tea. Saw it from our point of view, and then went back and tried to sort things out here. You need to listen more. I'm going to go before I say something rude.
well, thank you. Well, I'm going to have to move forward with the meeting at the council now, but council is going to do.
All I really wanted to say is that the gypsy liaison officer for this area, there's one in the east of Somerset and one in the west, and the east one is on long-term sick, which is most unfortunate. And I have been to a presentation by a man from West Sunset, and I'm not sure it should be particularly helpful, but the person who's responsible is often very, very sick. So it's quite difficult and so
It's very difficult for me to come into these sorts of meetings. It's not my, don't know, I'm usually just offering outright. The advice is to come.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have to now open the meeting officially. I would like to ask our new councillor, Andrew, if you would like to mark the unity and when the candidate, we'd all like to stand to observe the silence. And while we do so, perhaps we can remember those who have passed over, and this council would particularly like to honour the memory of Geoffrey Ash, the great historian and author who passed away a few days ago. Thank you. Thank you very much. Gone around love you. So, councillors, first item on the agenda is to receive apologies. Do we have any apologies to receive?
Yes, Your Worship, we have three apologies in the making by all. We have apologies from Steve Henderson, Catherine Nick Cobble, and Christine Pryor. And Councillor this nation will be with us after a previous meeting in Kenning Street.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any declarations of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? Any items on the agenda where you feel that you should note publicly your interest? I have to say that the Town's Fund is on the agenda tonight, and I am a member of the Town Field Board, and I'm also a director of other community energy and the Burlington House, which are involved in the
I'd like to make a thanks to whoever will pay for the pop-ups down here in Montreal.
I'm sorry, we're in session now, so we'll let me stick to the agenda.
Oh, to say thanks.
Any other declarations? Councillor Bowman?
I'm a community investor in Avalon Community Energy.
Thank you.
Likewise interested in the town do.
Yeah, I'm also gone to British Chapel and
Councillors, if you know any interest you feel the public should know, whilst we're going through this, please do take a moment to say that. We received a presentation from Glastonbury Chamber of Commerce. Paul, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Your Worship. You'll be pleased to know that I'm not doing any PowerPoint slides or anything like that. Just to start off, for those who don't know, a brief history of the current chamber. It was formed in 2016, and basically over the next 3 years we had everyone year growth got up to almost 100 members, which made us the largest chamber in Menden.
Obviously in 2020 the pandemic came along, so we were straight into lockdown and basically Chamber effectively had to stop function. So we've done very little over the last 2 years. Our last event was in March 2020, which is a live coaching thing held downstairs. And we're sort of, that's all behind us now, and we're about to relaunch the Chamber. The first thing we've got coming up is actually for the town deal. We've got a presentation for businesses so that they can learn more about how they can get involved in town deal projects and even possibly with the work as well as the and then also we have an IGM, which is again a bit of a because of circumstances, but that will be at the beginning of March, April time. So end of March, beginning of April. So that's where we are at the moment. And we will basically relaunch. I said we had almost 100 members. We basically cancelled subscriptions during the pandemic, so nobody had to pay anything. So it's almost like we're having a relaunch because we actually want people to get involved in running it because it's only as good as the people who are actually putting stuff into it. So that's where we're going. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank for the fall.
Thank you. I'd like to ask you for, because over the time I've been on the council, we've heard quite a lot in relation to members of traders in the high streets and in the shopping areas. And I was very pleased that you put me right, that there were other members who were providing other businesses. And it might be useful at some time to hear things about their activities or things to do, things they're looking for support for or interest, because there are a lot of different people working and little companies working.
Exactly. Glastonbury is renowned for its number of micro businesses. The number of businesses we've got, with only one or a few employees. In fact, I think I might say that the percentage of those businesses is one of the highest in the country in terms of that. And we have got a variety of different things. I said 100 members. Probably only 10 or 15 of those are actually to do with the high street. The rest are in all sorts of other things.
Thank you. I just wondered whether we actually said the name of the organisation correct. It says Chamber of Commerce, I believe it's one.
Yes, we changed our name in 2019, I think it was, to Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. And basically, a lot of emphasis was then placed before pandemic on tourism. And obviously, it's a major industry of the town at the moment, so it's a key part of what we do.
Thank you very much. Councillors, I now move on to item 4, to approve the signing of correct records and minutes. The town council meeting held on the 11th of February. Councillors, you will see these minutes before you. I will also take in this item the minutes from the meeting of the council, which is an extra meeting on the 17th of January, which is also in your papers. I believe your table papers. We will move on to that at the same time. Happy birthday, Councillor Dodd. So, page 41. Councillor Barnett.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to report on item 152 that was able to make connection with Jane Coxgate from the YMCA, and she is actually going to be attending the commission meeting on the 1st of March, we hope, if she said next meeting. But just to confirm for other councillors, because we weren't clear what she was representing, it's the YMCA's new project in Street Road, which is about housing young people who need specific support, and it's a high ratio of carers and helpers, enablers to young people. She's also been involved in managing and running the similar facility that happens in Yeovil. So I think it will be useful actually for councillors to get to know what they're doing as they develop their work. Thank you.
Anything else on page 41?
One more figure, Richard, it's just interesting we have presentations from the people who came forward to be considered to be co-opted. We've had a complaint this evening about us not having an election. I think it's open to 10 electors to call an election if they wish. I think most of the people obviously thought the logic about a short stay on the council was pretty clear. It's interesting that if the Conservative Party had wished to put forward a candidate, they could have got 10 electors to call the elections, which would have sorted out the issue that we're hearing about. And interesting that a previous Conservative councillor decided to stand as an independent to be considered for co-option to council.
Thank you, Councillor. Very interesting observation. And we will all remember why the former Tory councillor said that she didn't wish to stand. We remember.
Finding a problem.
We look forward to May.
So, so councillor, anything else on page 41? Page 46. Page 43. What is it got?
Can I ask, Sarah, is this scope for hospitalised now working?
In response, Your Worship, I have followed that up this afternoon. The Tor Sparks have contract to replace the former lights with LED lights. They're not yet replaced. They're expecting delivery of all the parts, and I was surprised that it will be completed by the end of next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on page 43? Page 45, Councillor.
Question to the clerk. Just wondered whether the President is writing a statement received a letter.
They did work. Thank you. Page 44. And page 45. Councillor McDougall, I think your microphone is going to need to be put on properly. Page 46. And so I have to agree that this is a true record of the meeting I will suffice. Thank you. We now move on to the meeting of the council held on Monday the 17th, which was to continue the discussion on the recommendations of the Manchester Council on the PSPO, the Public Space Protection Order. We have a summary of the discussion first. Anyone wish to comment? I imagine this is page 47. Any points? Councillor?
I was under the understanding that there wasn't to be individual representation from the councillors, but I noticed in the email Gerard sent out today that we can now make individual representation. And I was just wanting to confirm that that's appropriate for the councillors now to write to the interim about this.
Your Worship, under correspondence later on, I will be raising this topic again, because what you discussed was the draft of the PSPO legislation change, and that is now underway for a full and proper public consultation. Councillor Newman is correct. If you want to make your own representations, you're at liberty to do so.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I now go to sign this off as a record meeting. I will Thank you. So, councillors, we now move on to hear a summary of the actions from the previous meeting. Sarah, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Your Worship. There's 4 actions that were from the previous meeting. The first we've already heard about was Ms. Copestay from the YMCA was invited to attend the meeting of the Youth Committee, and she didn't attend that one, but she is due to attend in early March. The planning clerk, Sarah, has informed the District Council about the alleged infringement of the planning of Royal Park Service Station, and a complaint has been forwarded to the District Council. That's underway. The next meeting of the neighbourhood plan, is something else we raised during your last council meeting, and that is scheduled for Monday the 28th of February at 7 o'clock here in the chamber. And also in the body of the minutes was myself organised a meeting with Street Parish Council, a follow-up meeting that took place last Thursday, Your Worship, the 3rd February.
Thank you very much. So, councillors, we now receive a police report. So, this is the table.
Your Worship wasn't tabled, it was emailed out earlier today, so I'll just go through the report in summary, by the way. The important thing is here, it's a busy month again for the police, the big team here in Glastonbury. They have attended various things, including breach of the peace, during the eviction of the caravans from the veterinary, and we're there to support the county council officers in the event there should be any concerns raised. And they were support agencies were therefore contacted in advance, and they worked along with those support agencies. The PCSO Mel Rose has done some sterling work with PCSO Brad Hefferman and Paul Linsell on encouraging St. Benedict's School to have a mini police visit to the mountain police section up in Bristol. And from what I can gather, some very excited children went to Bristol and were given demonstrations on fire training and the likes, and seeing police officer work. But for certain, those young people will be influenced by what they saw, and that's all part of a mini junior Duke of Edinburgh award scheme that they're being encouraged to partake in. PC Dan Williams and PC Darren Pearson assisted here for arrest for a male on warrant, and PCSO Paul Linsell, Mark Purple, and Carnachal also attended and arrested a separate incident of male in town. The increase of youth-related antisocial behaviour was noted, including some eggs being thrown around, and the team have been working with that, and also following up to the shops where some of these missiles may well have been bought, and attending to what they've done past that store. They have also held some beat surgeries, and they're very well received at various happy locations throughout the town, and are advertised in advance on the Mendip Police Facebook pages, but they do get a good turnout for those, and they do share that around like those different cafes. The team has spent a significant amount of time working closely with social services and the mental health team and outreach teams to deal with a number of safeguarding issues, particularly vulnerable people in the community. And then finally, the 3 PCSOs, Paul, Mel and Nick Birch, attended an incident in the marketplace which was triggered by a dispute over the parking outside of Hot Guns, and a response officers attended to assist them, and one man was arrested for assault. So that's quite a comprehensive overview, Your Worship, but the full email and content has been sent to each council.
Thank you. Considering the last incident happened last night, as up to date as we can expect. Councillors, any comment on the police report? Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Chair. I know that there have been in the past police welfare visits to the different sites where travellers picking stay, and I was wondering if we could, hearing what we've heard today, and particularly about the suicides that have been happening, if we could check if the police are doing their visits with health workers that they were doing to actually support people in extreme mental difficulties.
Thank you. I wondered if you would be happy to inquire about it.
Your Worship, Papa Johnson's been mentioned. It might be better perhaps to bring it up later in the agenda when we're considering planning. But I think we need to refer the application for that business back to planning at some point.
Thank you. Which point on the agenda would you like to speak to?
Well, on item number 8, we're into a planning application. Perhaps we could just also raise it as an issue.
Thank you. I would be very happy to hear our council's views on that on Thursday.
Well, yeah, I'm aware that Councillor Steve Emerson and myself were regularly consulted and liaised with, together with police on a monthly basis. That seemed to end when I believe one or two of the officers were reposted or temporarily out of the area. Has that situation now been resolved? And can we expect to once again get that council liaison on a monthly basis? Because it was different to the report issue, and it was important for us to understand the background of what was going on.
I was under the impression that I would give you soon. Do you have any other information?
I believe it only didn't take place for reasons of shortfall of personnel from within the police to make it happen, but I'll pay those on that tomorrow. I do have a meeting with Simon Ramsey on planned for tomorrow.
Thank you. Let's hope we can get that next time. Thank you very much. So
I am assured by the when the evictions took place that welfare checks were done. So on the occasion of the evictions, there certainly are people checking for welfare. But I've been told.
thank you. I was aware of that too. Yeah. So we now move forward to receive and consider the resolutions, which are printed on the piece of paper from the 3 committees that have met since we last met. There's a number of the planning resolutions, which I think the council are really happy to get to note. It was a very interesting meeting with property and assets. I don't know if the chair wish to speak to any of the bullet points on here. I was very pleased to see both on the social media of the British Outlet and internet.
Unless there are questions, Your Worship,
and we have already heard the chairman, but still everybody to add.
Just briefly on the youth provision one, I would like to add that we have at the last youth provision committee, following request from the chair and members of the property assets committee, for which thank you, that we agreed to with our reserve money to fund replacement gate board lights from the youth provision budget, and that seems a very sensible thing to have done.
Thank you. Any points that anyone wishes to raise around resolutions in the table? Or we have to know them and move on. Thank you. So we now have to consider planning application. Chair planning.
I'd like council to reconsider this one. Decided that we won't provide all the information at the planning meeting. So this is for reconsideration. Bearing in mind that it's a second submission of this application, as you can see, revised November 2021. The original application, which was used
due to overdevelopment, consideration of overdevelopment, which has since been removed. Maybe have a look at it.
So councillors, I need to declare an interest in this as I have just moved from next door to this property.
Stopped out, but the out, as you can see, the outbuilding has been removed from this application. Just been asked to point out what's happening. I think it's evident that, as it says, the direction of the kitchen into extension, and there has been other extensions along the road of similar nature.
Do I help you?
Still got the plan, though, still showing the bill.
It's still showing the building, yeah.
We were assured, Your Worship, that the plans that were forwarded for consideration at the January meeting of the Planning Committee were showing the presence of an outbuilding in the garden. And we were assured that, and we put comments forward as sort of off the back of the discussion, and the planning plan put forward your recommendation for refusal based on overdevelopment. And then it came back to us saying that that building in the garden has been taken out of the discussion. So I suspect that they're still showing on there. I suspect it's because the clerk has put up the plans from the previous meeting, but I'm assured that these will be taken out.
There they are.
Yes, that's what it's showing.
But it says the outbuilding is now not part of that.
Not part.
Councillors recall that at the time, although I have an interest in this, I did raise the issue of what the revised meant, and that's because I was absolutely under the impression that the revised meant that the building in the garden was no longer part of the planning application.
Your Worship, if I may. I know this application of this lady. We meet on a regular basis when we're in dogs. Particularly interesting.
Should I?
Yeah. Well, she don't live near me. No,
Just know it.
Oh, then
Well,
I'll
she
have to declare an
approached
interest.
him on the basis that he was a board councillor. That doesn't.
Councillor, perhaps if you have some information to share that may be useful for your fellow councillors, that would be not to have an opinion on the application.
Should I?
So I would like to propose that as the outbuilding is no longer part of the plans, that we accept this application just for the infill extension of the kitchen. I would second that.
So all those in favour?
Can I vote?
As you declared an interest, then you should. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Those against? No abstentions?
You'll be abstaining, John, so.
Yeah.
3, 9, 3.
Thank you, councillor.
Thank you, councillor. So, now we're still on item 8. I'm very happy to have the issue of Patrick John's raised.
I think we all understood when we were looking at the application for Papa John's that this was to take away business
And just like maybe nice fish and chip shop on the road, a takeaway business, there's no parking outside the shop. The people have to go, if they want to take away, they go to the car park and they go and collect whatever they've ordered. I noticed, particularly driving past one evening, there were 5 cars in a row lined up outside Papa John's, with the first car outside the shop, the next were curved round in front of the crown, in front of the Steve's Butchers, and basically you had a queue of cars going to pick up whatever they had ordered. This was not in the planning application, it was not what we understood. In the application itself, in the submission, they mentioned that there is no parking outside the shop, but that there are car parks close nearby where the customers can go to park when they want to pick up what they've got. We have not got that situation now. It also says under some of the planning requirements that the operation of a business should not impinge on other businesses nearby, and it is in the conservation area. The fact that cars are driving through in front of the Crown, in front of other businesses through the day, not just at night, to pick up deliveries or to take deliveries out, and that is in fact impinging on the whole area around the Market Cross. I believe that we should ask Linda to point this out at least to Papa John's, and in some way we need to think again about putting some form of barrier in the pedestrian area. The only transport mentioned in the planning is for delivery lorries between in the early morning and the afternoon, and there were specific requirements put on those about the time they would stay, about the noise to be made, about what the drivers would do. So those were specifically in the planning application, but no mention of traffic at all. I think if we leave this go on, we're going to just open up that whole pedestrian area to traffic. There are not people sneaking through now, we see them regularly, and I think it's time that we get back to Mendip District Council with objection to what is going on at that premises, and asking them to take it up with Papa John's itself, and if we can find some way of actually temporarily obstructing traffic through the pedestrian. I know we're about emergency vehicles and deliveries, but after 10 in the morning and late at night when the delivery is about 4 o'clock, then we should be capable of blocking up in some temporary way that emergency vehicles could move very quickly so that regular traffic does not use that pedestrian area. It would even be a problem at night in the summer, if you can imagine, when we go on tourists in the town, and when our locals are in the various hostelries there, maybe outside, then there's going to be a possibility of accident. So I think we need to go back to Mendon about this and Papa John's indeed, because they are not complying with the requirements they set out in their own application.
Thank you. Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not that many years ago, we had a lot of problems there with the fire service. We've now settled that, and it looks to me as if we have problems again, because that is an emergency access to the high street, and seconds count, and that should be kept clear just for emergency vehicles. Like I say, we had quite a bit of a problem there with the fire service at one time. That's been overcome, and now it looks like we have another problem there, which we've got to overcome again.
Well, Councillor, I remember your excellent work in trying to resolve this at the time, and going on to that. I recall when this was an issue, the fire engines and the fire service were not having to go through there because no vehicles were supposed to go through there, and they were worried that they would be breaking the law. It would appear that the delivery service or the customers at Papa John's are indeed infringing that piece of legislation that relates to the centralisation of the market. So I think this council should take Councillor Keary's suggestion in consideration to make about this.
We also, I'm reluctant to see yellow hatching across there. It doesn't lend, yellow hatching does not lend itself to the marketplace. So we have to think of something else to prohibit vehicles there.
And you can tell.
Well, I'd like to support both speakers and agree that we sit this conservation area, we don't want to spoil it with anything really. So rather than, well, I don't mind us writing to amend it, but surely we could deal with this a little bit more head on, could we not? And could the clerk not write directly to Papa John and say, look, you've come here to trade in the town, but that you need to respect what you've come into, because we sat in the front window of the town the other night and it was one vehicle that just come back and forth, obviously collecting orders and taking back, delivering them, but there were people there coming in and sitting on the market cross the road, and this vehicle was sort of really totally disregarding the pedestrians, they just were trying to get their job done and delivering pieces. Well, that's not what the whole concept of that area is about, and I just think we need to tackle it as a town council as well ourselves, rather than just rely on Mendip. If you might recall, we actually recommended refusal for the planning permission because we foresaw these problems. And I know that Steve Henderson has been dealing with the problem with the stuff coming out the other side as well, which we also raised with Mendip. So by all means, let's contact Mendip, but why don't we approach them directly and say, look, in the spirit of trading in Glastonbury, you've come in here as a big corporate organisation, we expect you to respect the town and to operate in a reasonable manner. I think it would be unreasonable for the town to do that.
Thank you. It's struck me that that's a very wise suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have full clarification on the actual highway regulations of that cross? Because I'm under the impression that it is open for deliveries to shops there. So, you know, I think we need to clarify exactly what vehicles can and cannot use that area in the first place before we go any further, really. Deliveries, I believe, is by vans and lorries, not by cars, in the highway code. So perhaps County Council might be able to enlighten me on that or find out the road regulation for that area. Because we can't go forward on anything if we don't know the regulation that applies to that area.
Well, Councillor Bishop, when Councillor Nuttall was talking into this before, and I certainly support Councillor Nuttall in his investigations, and we have various communications. It appears that Newton is absolutely a no-through road. You can't drive a vehicle through there. There are conditions granted in planning, such as Councillor Peary was saying, where the planning application grants the condition that delivery can be made such between certain times. But that is not what's happening, and I think that's the situation we're trying to address. I think that what I've heard so far is that, as Councillor Tucker suggests, this council writes about themselves directly, reminding them of where they are, and that it's an important place from a conservation point of view, and it's not acceptable on their own taking. I think that to write to many district councils, planning authority, and remind them of the conditions of the planning award, and that these conditions should be enforced by Mendip when they get grant to employ the officer. And finally, highways should also be contacted because they're the ones who put the road traffic order in place. Does Council feel that sounds appropriate?
I would like to add to that I would suggest, having worked with outlets in previous work situations, that we actually send a copy of the letter that we're sending to platforms here to their head office in this country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to recommend and ask councillors if they support all these suggestions. I myself think they're all a very good idea for improving municipal governance.
So making a first round.
One small problem is Papa John, that they cannot stipulate to the public whether they drive on there or not. That's not their concern. So we've got to think up some other way of prohibiting vehicles on that.
I watched it the other day. It's the same vehicles coming backwards and forwards. I believe they're delivering orders to the public.
Those people that work for Papa John's, yes, they have a mandate, and they can tell them not to go on space.
I think once that happens,
Residents, they cannot stipulate that residents don't go on there, I'm afraid. And that's up to us to try and sort that out.
This is why we work highways as well, for the enforcement of the traffic law.
Not to use some used phrase, but it's a multi-agency time to get together to try and sort this out.
We've got a camera out there. Surely we can focus on the number of places those vehicles going in and out when you shoot it, because they're coming both ways. I've seen it at home, and some of them at the speed as well. Could we sort of zoom in and get some of those number plates?
Well, as I understand, the police already utilised the function of our camera in the arrest that happened last night. So they are utilising that facility already, and I would imagine that they're the correct authority to deal with any breach of any danger members of the public. Perhaps we could also add the local police team to our list of people that we write to inquire why this is within South County Council's post tonight.
You're going to ask Patrick Jones to put a notice up in your own way from the area that cars with lots.
Okay, well, that's something we can put into our attitude.
So perhaps they could refuse the turf people who come in cars into the area.
Thank you. So, councillors, I have a proposal for that. No one is yet seconded the proposal.
I'll second this.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone wish to speak against this? No, show hands all those in favour. Anyone wish to vote against the motion? Anyone wish to abstain? Councillors, we now move on to City Council report. I'm delighted that Councillor Napa is here with us. Councillor Napa, I see that we have a report from you. Do you wish to add anything to your report?
Yeah, I'll take my report, and I'm here to answer any questions. There is just one thing I would like to say. I attended a film show in the main hall on Friday evening about flooding and peat digging in the area. Very informative. Peat digging, yes, is not one of the rosy times in this time. But I would hate to see the tradition die out, and I just wonder whether we can set aside a small area for people to see how the old people used to dig the peat out, and because it's a tradition which is from Glastonbury, the peat and the turf. I would hate to see that die out. Whether that can happen or not, I don't know. But maybe we can preserve that in some way.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I come back on that?
Councillor.
Terry, I've got a film.
Sorry, can you?
I've got a film that was filmed in 1928 about peat digging. It's a silent road with a subtitle. It's all done by hand.
Yeah.
And they used to get a pint of cider there because they used to suck it out.
And I'd love the cheese rights, right?
And I discovered that they are more money than shoemakers in CJ Clark's or on paper. They earn more money down there per week than they did in Clark. So it's hard work. Really hard work.
I just think that it was a wonderful film, and I don't think too many councillors went to see it, but it was a really good film, very, very informative about the area, and I really enjoyed it. Just to say that.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor?
I see that you are talking about grants of 10,000 available for installation green home scheme, saving measures, installation and so on. I was wondering, is there any way we can publicise this so that people in Glastonbury know about it?
Yeah, sure. I think it's on, if I go That's my notes which I sent in. It's on www.
It's Somerset.
Whatever.
But I'm wondering, is there some way that we can get the people of Glastonbury to know about it? Either through a county level or
let's
through a
get
town
everyone to
council.
know about it.
Whether we can get the information out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor suggests we put that in our news release, which may be a very useful thing. Councillor?
Well, just to reply to that, the Centre for Sustainable Energy based in Bristol have been operating policy grants to this area for some time. And I'm aware because I'm aware that people on benefits can have a complete solar array erected at no cost. And that's by City Energy. But you just have to find it. So the Centre for Sustainable Energy, and I'm sure that they would link onto our website with a piece of information.
I would support Councillor on suggestion, but also that we put it out on social media.
Yes.
Councillor, do you have to send the information to the class so that you can get that? Any other questions for Councillor?
Just to comment, Your Worship, the history of PTV and all this, but perhaps could be one of the displays in the new museum at Glastonbury, which should indicate to them that it would be perhaps worth putting a display in the new museum.
I think there is something in the rural marketing already, but and Councillor, it's very useful to see that you put about the decision by the Secretary of State or Parliament on 30th of January. The green, the vesting date of 1st of April 2023. And so the first election to the new authority with parish elections will be held on 5th May. So that is absolutely now. Thank you. There we are. I hope that that's useful information for some of the members of the public. Councillors, we are on the same council reports, and I see, as if by magic, that our different councillors here.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did send an email very late. I'm sorry. I'm running late all the time, and I just couldn't speak out. It seems to be an exceedingly busy time. Perhaps it was the same in 1974 when Mendip was created and now it's to be devised. I don't know what you have already discussed, whether you've discussed with Councillor Napa Bristol Road on the proposals.
No, it has come up from that.
Okay, so I have had a great many emails, correspondence and phone calls and personal visits with people on the residence estate. Every time we've suggested anything over the last 4 years, so parking restrictions failed, park and ride had a lot of opposition and never actually got anywhere because the town deal came along and then we were looking at transport and travel project in the Beckery area. And then when active travel started being funded by the government, so county councils already have 2 tranches of money for active travel, and they have an application in for a 3rd tranche of 400,000, and the county council has also put back 1.5 million for active travel projects over the year we're in now, and that will impact be run into next year. And so the fact that it was possible to look at Glastonbury Road for an active travel project, where it would join to Cinnamon Lane and might even, one day, who knows, Councillor Napper's dream of the greenway across the moor running along the side of the River Bridge. Who knows, it might happen one day, it's not beyond the bounds of possibility. And so that proposed project for Glastonbury Road seemed to me to be a really good resolution. So it doesn't get rid of the need for traveller sites, and we are making progress at the moment. It
doesn't get rid of the need of some form of legislation, and I was very pleased today. I don't know if any of you have seen the revised version of the PSPA that's come out from Monday for consultation today. That has had its language modified quite considerably, to my great relief. And so we lose take back control and we regain a balance. So I feel that that's in a better place now. I'm not saying everybody will like it, but it's certainly better than it was. And then the stay down, if we ever get to the narrowing of the road, which frankly I would do stay in the wheelbarrow, I could just get in there. And the WO line markings and all the projects in Beckery, as well as the small improvement schemes, the 20-mile-an-hour zone, the safer crossing. There appears, it feels to me as if we have achieved some progress in Glastonbury. And it's not enough, and it never will be enough, but it's considerably better, I think, than it was back in 2017, and we've had to live through the pandemic.
Can I just clarify from what you said? The ideas for the changes down Bretton Road, which are in the MAG's vision, they're still going to be moving forward without subject to consultation.
There was a consultation through the group of residents that brought themselves forward and came to RMP, James Hickey, the leader of the County Council, David Colville, and ourselves as county councillors. I don't know yet whether that consultation that happened is adequate for that proposal to go ahead. I'm waiting to hear if and when it goes ahead. All the drawings are on the small improvement scheme part of the county's website. The last statement from the multi-agency group suggested that it would still happen this spring. I've had a small number of very vociferous residents telling me they don't like the scheme, and they don't like it because it requires some of the roads to become one way. The reason for that is something called LTN 120, which is Low Traffic Neighbourhoods Guidance for all the roads in England, which was adopted last year. It's government guidance. If you have a multi-user path, which is the correct term for walking and cycling path, because it should cover all forms of transport, including mobility scooters, wheelchairs, in some places horses as well as walking and cycling. So multi-user path now has to be a minimum of 3 metres wide. There is a minimum width for a 2-lane road, and Glastonbury Road has moved from being far too long, far too straight, and far too wide to not wide enough. It is not wide enough to take 2 lanes of traffic and a multi-user path. So in order to comply with the government's LTN 120 guidelines, and therefore to get government money for active travel, because that is quite an expensive scheme. You know, it won't be £40,000, but I don't know what it will be, but it will be considerable lot of money. So the only way to get all of that in the width of that road is the design of that canal. And that is the only way to get the government funds for active travel. So it's this option, or not an option. We can't go back to parking restrictions, we know that. I don't think for a minute we'd go back to park and ride with a tour bus or whatever. Apart from anything else, people who lived on the estate were really concerned, and I understood their concern that if there were paid for parking in Bretton Road, that what would happen is people would simply park up around the estate. There is concern about where people park to go to the children's playground in Cinnamon Lane. There's concern about that. There's concern about the join between Bretton Road, Chalice Way and Cinnamon Lane, so that motorbikes can't go through there. Actually, they could get through if they wanted to. But that join needs to be planned and managed and planned. So my personal view, and as you know, Councillor Napper and I live in the street,
big plenty of stick for that over the last few years. If we stand in the street, we really want to get whatever projects are on the table finished before May and before the end of this financial year, or at least the money committed in this financial year so that the work is done in the next financial year, but early rather than late. So it doesn't feel that it's our last ditch attempt, but we are, I think I'm speaking for both of us when I say we are really keen to make sure that where there's government money, where there's county council money, that actually it's spent for the benefit of the residents of Glastonbury who've spent the last 4.5 years telling me how unhappy they are. So that's where we are on it. We're waiting. I'm still waiting. We're still waiting to get a commencement date for the work in Stonehenge and a commencement date for the work in Glastonbury.
Thank you. Just for Councillor's clarification, the consult is going into consultation when and how long for?
I think that the consultation they did through the residents group who came forward.
Will be suffice.
That's what I'll be waiting to hear, because if the project goes ahead, then that in effect proves that that consultation was. But I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a highways engineer, I don't run consultations for a living. So I, like you, am waiting to hear if there's a commencement.
I understand that most of the lawyers at Somerset are very pleased that you're not a lawyer, as they still like having some work.
Right, Liz, thank you very much for all the work that you're doing to try to resolve this problem, not only for the residents of Bretton Road, residents, but also other sites as well. But I have to draw some attention to, first of all, the letter that was distributed to residents by the council, where it declared that the council approved the scheme referred to in the letter. I don't remember that we as council approved that particular scheme. We approved the fact that there was a need to look at ways to prevent the parking of travel along the edges, etc., but not that particular specific scheme. The residents that have expressed their anger to me, and I said to them, I don't believe that we have approved that scheme, so I don't think that we should be something that was a misrepresentation of the letter. The other point of the letter, which I've been drawn attention to by residents like you, was that it was a very long link in letters and numbers on paper. And anyone knows that if they try to put a long link into a Google search, likelihood is it's not going to work. Surely there could have been a very simple way of saying, just go to this particular point on the County website and click on that, and you'll get the plans and drawings. The third point that was raised with me was that not all the people on Redlands have access to the internet, believe it or not, even though we've got very fast, super fast fibre broadband going at the moment. But not everybody is using the broadband or using the internet. So there needed to be another alternative way for people to look at those plans, and that ought to be expressed in the letter. Then we get on to the text, we get on to the actual context of the problem. A lot of people have said, why, as you pointed out, why do we need to have a single carriageway when the double carriageway is perfectly fine? You answered that by saying it's a government policy legislation, and if you want to have a cycleway, you can't have the widths don't work out. I think a lot of people who spoke to me said, well, how many cyclists do you actually see in a weekend using that road? Now, none of us could actually recall seeing any cyclists use that road, so unless a lot of work was put forward to actually encourage a cycle route from A to B, there isn't going to be cycle traffic. So all of this work will not really constitute a recreational asset because there are no people cycling along that road. There you come, numbers, not in your head. So I'm sure that the people that are hopefully watching on YouTube and understand the situation will also be saying, yes, there could have been a better way of doing it. I know it was a solution that you put forward, Councillor Adler, and we're grateful for that. And it's unfortunate that it's now become convoluted with this need for a narrower carriageway for vehicular travel. There is, of course, still the issue that once you get a one-way system going round, there's going to be more people passing at the front end of Actis Road to get to the back end of Actis Road than obviously the ones that still use that route. Once they've gone through to their properties, then they'll be using the Bretton Road to exit again. So that won't be a problem there. But it will become a problem for the people that live along Actis Road, because we'll see a lot more traffic coming around which wasn't there before. The other issue is that because there's a lot of parked cars along Actis Road, there's always going to be a danger, increased danger, that there will be an accident or other incidents taking place. Not only that, but we don't want to see road markings. It's the one estate in the whole of the town with no traffic markings, no junction markings, no signage. There's even only one Littlefield, I believe. There's even no bus stops, and no bus you can say, hey, you can stop here. So to try to preserve that other unique character that this estate's got, we don't want to see this introduced, which will then encourage travellers to possibly park up in those spaces around this road, and then there'll be a demand by them to say we need to put building lines, and then we get back to building lines. So really, I'm not in favour of this. I'm in favour of having something done, but this seems to have gone one step beyond. So I'd like to register my concern and the concern of all the residents that spoke to me, particularly about the letter. I think there is a need, before any decisions are made, that perhaps residents are given a chance to come either to the town hall or a different alternative to make their views known rather than smaller than of those residents.
Your Worship, if I may just respond.
Yes,
I spent quite a bit of time around different parts of Glastonbury, and I would say that residents say that it's the quietest bit of Glastonbury from a traffic point of view that I ever visit. And then I visit a friend in Chalice Way. I was driving the line. I was actually counting bands and thought that bands. I never drive along Preston Road and back. I always go up down and park outside the house and come back a different way. So I never do that really. But my personal view is that this is the most likely scheme. If residents in adequate numbers contest against this proposed scheme, I'm out of it.
Well, or they'll just keep what they've got basically. It's a means to an end. This isn't rocket science.
So this is the best proposal we have found because by doing the one way, we can, the highways engineers can make it legal, they can make it fit with LTM 2120, they can get active travel money towards it. You show me multi-user paths between Wells and Shepton, and I would say to you, you'll never see a bike there, you've never seen a bike there. You build a piece of decent multi-user path, and you'll see people walking, cycling, mobility scooters. I can take you to Dulver and show you the piece that Menlo has managed to build recently. And you go there on a Sunday morning and have a look. Have a look how many people are there with their children, learning to ride a bicycle on a safe piece of level track. And I'll show you somebody who goes from Wells with her push along, and she goes all the way from Wells to Dulver and the loop and back to Wells. But people, loops start somewhere. And when I once asked the highways
got frustrated by building little bits of the 303, they said no, they said, we build a bit when we can and another bit when we can, and can we live long enough to join it all up? And that is the approach that you have to take. If you want to get travel and traffic, you want to get traffic off that part of that highway or that path, or you want to create a new path, you have to start somewhere. Nobody starts with a complete M25 back to travel around sunset. So I'm committed to it. I think it's the best solution. My concern is more for those people who live in other areas of Glastonbury who contact me considerable numbers of times about their concerns, about their personal safety, and their concerns with other people's living conditions. My concerns are for the town deal and the possibility of getting all of those projects complete in Beckery. My concern is that we at Mendip have got adequate land, which I believe we're making good progress on there, to have both a transit camp, traveller camp, and a permanent place for those people who went through the court case from the Moreland side. So those things all have to be done. There's a shed load of work gone into all of this. So travel sites for me are at the top. They were here. The active travel and stone down narrowing of the road. I was in this room when Michelle Cusack and Tom Rutland from the County Council came here and projected those plans up on the screen for town councillors to see. It's the first time I've ever seen county council officers come out to parish or town council meeting to actually present something like that. I was pretty impressed that they did that. And then all of these things are the PSPO, and the intention is to regain the balance of Glastonbury so that it still remains a unique and different place, but that the balance is regained and those people who live in bricks and mortar are able to settle back down to a life that suits them too. I think that's a perfectly reasonable wish to proceed. And if it hadn't been that Glastonbury Street was split up in this next election, I would have been very pleased to continue my work.
Councillor London and Councillor Nupper, I'm sure I speak on behalf of the whole council when I say what a tremendous job you both have done in supporting us and our community in moving this forward. It has been a considerable expense to your time and I'm sure your peace of mind as well during these last very difficult years. I think that the work that has been achieved through the MAG group has been the best compromise that we could get for the town, considering all of the interests that there are in relation to some very difficult issues that are indeed a reflection of the national problem, which has been neglected, and sadly, because of the place that we are, it's been amplified here. It's quite extraordinary that all of the organisations, police, county council, district council, and local town council, have been able to come together with our very different backgrounds as councils, very different powers as councils, but come together to try and achieve the best for all the people involved. And it's by no means it's been easy. So thank you so much from both my heart and on behalf of the whole council people. And I'm very sad that the way that things have happened, that the election being brought forward to this year has, in some ways, almost prevented us from really seeing this in a timely way, seeing this through. And I'm sure that whoever's sitting on this council after May, whoever they are, will be hopefully wanting to work with both of you in your capacities that they are, you're still working on Mendip, I'm sure, at that time, to work with you still to try and come to the resolution. It's extremely difficult. I think that as a council, this can only be a compromise. can't be what one person, one group wants. It has to be a compromise between all of the interests that are here to try and achieve something that is workable. I have just been liaising with the clerk around the letter at the same time, and that letter was approved by the multi-agency group. So it wasn't a cover letter just from this council, it was approved by the multi-agency group to go to the residents, to actually give residents the opportunity to see what plans were being presented. Whether or not this council has made a decision that it favours one solution or not, I think that you're quite wrong. This is actually the only solution. There is no other option on the table, is there? It's either this or that. And so I think that as far as that's concerned, I would just like to take a straw poll of this council's members. Are you for this? Please put your hands up. And are you against it? Please put your hands up. Are you abstaining from your position? Please put your hands up. So in general, this council is in favour of the solution that you have been speaking to this evening. And
I just said I'm just rather concerned that you're placing emphasis on this council's decision about a plan that affects a large group of residents. Now, what I'm trying to explain to you is that residents come to me with their concerns, but by no means am I trying to say that that's the majority. You have a group of residents who come to you as well. I don't know quite what it is that they said to you, but I'm trying to put forward the need to make sure that all residents along the access road particularly are properly consulted, rather than using that letter in particular, which I explained what the downside of that letter was. So rather than take a vote around the table, because all these members around the table don't live in the St Mary's ward, specifically on the Redlands. So I'd rather you take a vote, and I'll put a motion forward that you do extra consultation with the residents of Cactus Road to find out what their opinions are, first of all. That would be more interesting, that would be more favourable, rather than just what council members do.
well, I just did a straw poll to see where we passed where we were as elected in our thought times, and we supported the council opinion on the merit of this approach. I'm pretty certain that the multi-agency group will be the organisation that it should approach to carry on any further consultation related to this. This is by its very nature a confederacy of various different organisations, and needs to be, because no one authority has the absolute power to do all of the things that are necessary. It needs to be a joined up and non-agency approach, the only way we can do it. And I think that the manager as an entity is the correct body to consider whether or not to do further consultation.
Your Worship, it has the support of highway engineers, the professionals, and it has the support of the police, as well as the county council and the district council. And the plans were presented here at the county council. To be quite honest, we could do consultation on every one of the 12 projects in the town bill. We could do consultation on everything we ever asked highways to do, and we would never get a total majority in favour of any one thing. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to achieve projects that are to the benefit of residents of Glastonbury. And if anyone tells me that safe space to walk and cycle that joins up to quiet lanes and cycle byways is not a good idea, then I'll disagree with them.
Thank you. Any other questions?
The question I thought that the proposal Paul mentioned earlier that I have residents contact me and say that I had a letter, I know you explained it later, they felt it come from the town council supporting that one-way system. So I know that was the case. But on the back of that, something needs to be done, and I think the proposal on the table from Mayor Council and my group is the way forward because it's gone far too long. And I fully support what's going through at the moment.
Thank you. So you're changing your opinion?
No, because the way it was worded in that motion earlier was something different.
Well, it was in the motion.
Well, the vote, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Lyons, thank you very much for coming here.
So that one's not easier. Nothing's easy at the moment, Your Worship, as you probably realise. There's run up to the election and then the run up to testing day. And I suspect for the 2 years after testing day, it's going to be very demanding and it's going to ask a great deal of those people who stand for election and people who stand for town and parish elections too. Are going to be standing, not knowing what the future holds of the military council, they will know political direction. It's, it's a testing time, but if you're 3-2 incredibly testing years, and we're still here, and we're still working, so it could be worse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, councillors, we now move on to receive district council reports. Councillor McDougall, would you care to begin?
Well, I sent one in, so I don't have a copy of it here.
Your Worship, I made the district council reports of Henderson and McDougall have been put on the website and circulated via email.
Is there anything
I
you
do
to add?
want to add that there's a question of putting some signs up to say how we're managing the weeds. Take this opportunity to say that. We mentioned this 3 years ago, and it was kind of put on hold. But I'd like to get some support from the council to do that.
Sorry, you
You put some signs up to say how we're managing the weeding, like perhaps say we're using Frenzy.
Oh, I see. The process is.
We're not using chemicals to manage the weeds. So I'd just like to raise that as well, which I can put in my report.
Thank you. Councillor, would you care to bring that to the next meeting as well?
If that's appropriate, I mean, 3 years ago I thought it wasn't an appropriate thing to do come further, so we're kind of running into that.
Councillor Smart.
I think it's straightforward, because it's just the fact that we are managing the weeds in a chemical-free way. It would be a bee-friendly way. It's a matter of fact, and that statement that we just made, small sign, perhaps 1 or 2 of the hunters outside of that town. Just advertise the fact that this is a bee-friendly town. Same way that we're a fair trade town, we're also a bee-friendly town.
I think that that may be something that might be worth going forward to the Glastonbury and Bloom Committee to promote the non-toxic kind of way of breeding and stuff. But
I was really just seeking support here, seeing it was suggested to me. I mentioned it to our new assistant town clerk, and he suggested that I just seek some support here for it rather than a complex procedure.
Councillor, we supported of promoting the fact that we use non-toxic weed control in the town through perhaps some signage on some of our in blue displays. Do you get with that? Yeah, so yes, we have supported that. I looked into our position of town parking, perhaps you would like to report on that. There's a chemical-free group in Glasgow who have made some amazing signs on how their area isn't using pesticides and herbicides. I'll send you a link because these signs are quite nice. We might be able to introduce them.
Yes, lovely. Thank you, Worship.
Any questions for Councillor? So I have, unfortunately, I've been unwell. I missed all the meeting because it was in person extremely cold at the time, and I took advice from kids and decided that it might be better for me not to go at COVID times to a meeting whilst I've got to sneezing all over the place. I'm afraid I missed the audit committee meeting, but I did attend the Somerset Rivers Authority's joint scrutiny board meeting, which was extremely interesting. They had the two officers there, presentations to by the two officers who make film that was shown here on Friday. And they were talking about the importance of Somerset building its resilience to the issues related to climate emergency and ecological emergency. And part of that, of course, is the response that we need to have to flooding, which is the biggest issue which I think we all face. But we have a number of other connected issues with climate emergency, and it's very useful for me to listen to all of the people from Somerset related to this authority. There's a number of different groups, the county, district council, and other parishes, who are all extremely interested in this, and to reflect that we have moved forward with the climate emergency in a very positive, proactive way, and other countries are now going around and they need to suffer around as well. And so I'm very pleased that we had to come on Friday night, and I'm afraid that I was elsewhere. I'm very happy to take any questions. And now we move on to see if I did monitoring reports.
Sorry, I thought there was something else to report. Could I raise a sort of administrative issue about reports? My memory, if it serves me right, is that we're not having tabled written reports now because of paper usage. But if reports are being put out on email, for those people who are working on other projects in the daytime, and that only comes into their email box on the Tuesday morning of the meeting that we're having. It means, and if you're not a person doing work that means you're sitting in front of a computer and dodging between being distracted from the other work we're doing, you don't actually get to see it. It'd be really useful if they could at least come in the day before, if it's only by email. Thank you.
I'm sure part of the information that and the assistant councillors
Normally speaking, if it comes in on Tuesday morning, it gets printed out. But it didn't this time.
Yeah, because there are a week one did receive printed reports at level.
There's no reason we were trying to circulate it by email and put them on the website, but there's no reason why this was in this something that we put on the table.
But I think it would be useful, councillors, perhaps for us to have written reports printed in the table, just because not everybody is online as to say, or able to access the information. So we were moving on to receive posting monitoring reports table. Again, I'm extremely pleased that the corporate finance officer has given us a very comprehensive set of notes how to understand the reports. Councillors, has anyone, I noticed that the clerk was wondering whether questions could have been sent prior to this meeting. Did any questions? No, we were.
I have a question, Jim.
Yes?
Well, my question is, I've already mentioned it once before to the chair of Commonweal, not Mr. Lindsay, but I noticed that the rents for the Commonweal lot have still not been paid, and I'm just asking if you could remind Dave to do that, please.
I should have noticed before and informed the town clerk. I just wondered, we are started negotiations with the tenant of the shop unit in the car park. I'm just wondering how that is going on. That's for next year. So ongoing, isn't it?
Ongoing, yeah.
can we just draw attention to the date of this budget management report, which can't be the 1st of April 2022. And just going on to the election expenses, it's very small. Presumably that was the other by-election expenses that recruited as a wife, is that correct?
Well, which, where at this page?
This is the second page, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 down. It's listed. It's referred to as item 10 on the investigation.
We had no election.
The election was, I believe, what we're talking about 2001 and this current budget year. This was in the election which Councillor Bishop was elected into.
2001?
2021.
Make
May last year.
With the decent price.
Well, money well spent.
Well, of course.
Any other questions to page 2? And any other observations on page 3? So, no, this
you're approving the budget. And then you sign off.
But do you have your agreement to sign off these, this budget monitoring report from nice people? Okay, we now move on to receive schedule of payments. Were there any questions? No, delivery, you've got the final officer.
I'll take any questions by that and I'll
Do you have any questions relating to schedule of payments?
One, please, Trevor. So, we paid for the new gates, and thank you very much for organising that for me.
I organise it on behalf of the council, Your Worship. The gates that are being referred to are the 2 new gates that go on the footpath down by the bypass, and they have now been painted, and it might be tomorrow, but we've got a busy day moving oak tree things around tomorrow, and other excuses, but I'll try and get it done tomorrow, if not next.
Thank you very much, Joe. Well, I think all councillors know how important what you're going to put in this kind of role. Any other questions of this? You want to have your committee to sign these off at this meeting? So the council meeting, we now move on to receive reports from the advisory committees. First on this Fair.
Yes, Worship, thank you. We have had a review meeting of the Fair just gone. As you know, we had to curtail it somewhat, and we had to agreed at the last finance and general purposes meeting that we would refund those people who weren't able to trade because they couldn't put the gazebos up. The effect of that was, in the end, that we made a loss of £600, but that was after we bought a lot of wheat litter bins that we've got for the future, a lot of wheelbarrows, some extra radios, and some other ancillary the signage and things that we will have up our sleeve for future years. So actually, all in all, I think we came out of it fairly well. We did have actually a reserve of about £5,600, so we've got about £5,000 within the council's reserves earmarked for the false fair, so that we can go forward next year with oh, and we also put all the studs in the road so that we know exactly how that should function. So I think we obviously learned some, as always we do every year, we put a few notes in for next year to do a few things slightly differently. But I think actually we considered that we actually got away with staging an event which apparently the traders did better than ever, because of course there weren't the other people, there was the people in town, but there weren't the stalls that so the actual towns traders did remarkably well. So I think all in all it was deemed to be as successful as it could have been given the weather conditions that we had. So that's what we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What an amazing feat it was to do anything that December. We now move on to Glastonbury Blue. I chaired a meeting in Glastonbury Blue last night. I hope it was last night. It seems like it was last night. I'm sure it was. It was a very useful meeting, and we made a decision when we really interrogated the figures that we, considering the still the impact of COVID, it hasn't gone away. Still, we're heading into times when people are going to be absolutely facing possibly more hardship than we know in relation to bills, etc. And we wanted to show our support for the retailers in the town. We decided that we would actually, in the end, go ahead and do the same deal that we offered them last year, which is a free home basket, and then they can buy more home baskets at that price. That went down very well with the group, and I'm sure, I hope it will go down well with the retailers. Last year, we had an incredible response. We actually got rid of more home baskets, we got more home baskets out into the town than we had done any previous year. And I'm sure that contributed greatly to us getting the goal. We hope that will be the same. I'm see
Hello, yes. So we had a very good meeting of the climate emergency group. And first of all, I want to thank all those people who did the carbon footprint questionnaires and sent their responses through to me, because that's going to be really helpful. And I'll come on to that one. So initially we had Melissa's report, in which she gave an annual report, incredibly well set out in a table, along with how well we've done on 5 different aspects that she looks at. Now, she thought it had been sent to all the councillors, but none of those councillors who were at the climate emergency group had actually received it. So I was wanting maybe to question why it hadn't been sent to the councillors, because I think it would be a real benefit for all of the town council to see her annual report in the table, to see all of what has been achieved over this past year.
Is she in a position to just send it to all the same way?
I think that she thought that Gerard was going to be sending it. That's what she thought.
I was thinking she sent it first.
So there was a miscommunication there on that. Could we ask Gerard? Could that happen?
I think we should just ask Melissa to send it to the same way.
So who will ask Melissa to send it?
I'll do it.
Gerard. Brilliant. Because I would love everybody to see it. It's a really, really good report. So one of the things that came out of that was that there were people in the group wanting to do a newsletter, and also a suggestion that had come through from Axbridge Town Council and their climate emergency group, where they have a monthly stall where people in the town can find out information. For instance, what Terry Knapp has just told us about the £10,000 grants for insulation and double glazing and so on. It's how to get this information out to the people of Glastonbury. Yes, we can put it on the website, social media, not everybody has internet. So communication is a really key thing. And this was something that's come up a few times and it came up again. So I saw they had a little stall outside at the market this morning, and they were wondering if this council would be happy to do a monthly stall where people in the town could be informed about the things that they could do, such as cheap solar panels, grants for insulation, and other aspects that are coming up. Because I know a lot of people in town that don't become aware of what is available and what they can do. And it would be really good to get this out.
That would be the climate emergency and ecological emergency group. The advice would be having a stall.
Having a table or a stall of some sort once a month in the market, with the permission, with the assistance from the town council. Yeah, they did it today, I know. That was the one off and they're wanting for it to be a permitted regular thing.
Would that be something that we can authorise as a council?
As you're taking a space in within Mendip's area that we are letting them use, they would be only by the property informed back manager what we're letting them do. I would emphasise that it should be a table which will have no cost to it, because we are providing the car park to the benefit council.
So, Councillor Brandon, would you be happy to liaise with Gerard around setting this up without permission?
Very, very happy. Okay, Gerard. Will be an email communication. So the next thing was that I did carbon literacy training that had come through and been suggested. I was a member of the group that did this training. Incredibly useful. It's a Somerset-wide training that's going on. There were people from town and parish councils all across Somerset who were part of it. And one of the bits was about communication. One of the bits was about flooding, because flooding is the key thing that all of Somerset is going to be subject to. And I was really interested in communication because there are 7 different types of people, and they were showing us how to communicate with all of those different types of people, different approaches with different groups. Very, very interesting. The other thing that came through that at the end was something called impact, which is a carbon footprinting for the whole town. And I would very much like Melissa to do that impact. It's an online thing where we get the carbon footprinting for the whole town, which will show us the areas that we most need to work on and the areas that we're doing really well on. And I was wondering if this was something that the council would like us to ask Melissa to go ahead and do.
Is there a cost to it?
No, no cost. It's an online thing. I mean, the cost in hotel, that's all.
It feels like it's an appropriate part of the job, yes, absolutely.
So it's moving from looking after us as a town council, reducing our footprint, to looking at the whole town and how we can reduce the town.
So if that's a recommendation from the Climate Emergency Advisory Committee, this council has accepted the recommendation. So how can we be able to liaise with Melissa and ask them to follow up with that as an achievement?
So it's coming from me because as part of the climate emergency group, I did the carbon literacy training, and we haven't had a meeting since I did the training. So it's coming from me as part of the climate emergency.
Well,
having been asked by them to do the training.
The name representative of the group, Melissa.
Lovely, thank you. So those are the main things. We also had somebody who presented, in fact, it's the person who manages the Oxfam shop, who's now on the climate emergency group, and he was talking more in the worldwide sense, but something for us to become aware of, what he called allotment security. That when things get difficult, people growing food will have their food stolen. And what we could do to help make our allotments more secure. Very interesting presentation that you did. And we had the usual from the active travel people, the no travel people, and they're wanting to join the Walkers Are Welcome group, and this will be discussed at the next meeting, and I'll probably be coming to the Town Council to see if we can fund them to join Walkers Are Welcome. But that's an in-process.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Thank you. So now go on to our Davis Queen's Baton Jubilee. We're having a meeting, I think tomorrow night, yes, it's sure it is. We're having another meeting of that Fire Committee tomorrow night. We held on Sunday, which was Ascension Day for Her Majesty, the actual true 70th anniversary of her becoming Queen. We decided to mark that with celebrating another extraordinary event, which is the centenary of the Alex Buckton silent movie, Glastonbury, Past and Present. And we screened it 3 times because initially we were worried about COVID restrictions and being in COVID. And I have to say, there were 250 people actually came on Sunday to see the movie, and it was well received. I'm looking at Councillor Lysham, who gave a fantastic introduction with Dr. Tim Oxenbourne at the beginning of each of the screens. And it really went down, I think, incredibly well. Councillor Lysham, I don't know if you have anything to say.
Well, Your Worship, I'd just like to say how your soundtrack that you put together really added something to that film. I've heard it with piano, but actually the orchestral music and the guitars, it was very, very special. I congratulate you for
Thank you. Councillor Coles, did you have anything to say? You came to watch it?
Well, thank you for asking me that. I've seen it twice in Stoke Theatre when it was first shown. But you can actually watch it on the internet, but there's no sound. Subtitles come out. And for those of you who don't know, there's a plaque in St. John's Church. A very nice plaque too.
I think, Your Worship, if I have nothing else to do, I'd be looking to raise money for an orchestra to play.
Sadly, the other person that we know as a Catholic who passed recently, Robert Richards, I spent quite a few weeks chatting with him about doing exactly that kind of prom in the Abbey. And the soundtrack of the prom was essentially the same as the music we used for the prom. So it never came to fruition. But it would have been quite extraordinary. If Charles Hazel would have been in the country, it might happen, but either way. So could be something we could do. Put the film on a big screen.
I would really like to commend that it was actually shown and it was 100 years centenary of the Queen's 70th centenary. But I would also like to commend you, Councillor Nation, for having drawn this lost film up with your friend and colleague, Professor Tim, whose surname I can't remember, have done all the work to get it and to get it out there and to make it usable, and that it's been reprinted so you can really see what's so clear. It is a most amazing social history, the film, of what was happening in this town 100 years ago, and it's actually a bit like looking into another planet. So I just really wanted to say that absolutely great and great to the Jubilee Committee.
It would show that the film was rediscovered. It was Magic Mountain slides, wasn't it? Now, back in the 20s, she was wise enough to send a copy to the British Film Institute, but they had to refilm it frame by frame.
because in the 1920s, film was made from nitro, and it's very flammable. My late brother had loads of stuff. Put a mask on, go straight up, but it's now safe. And I didn't know there was it again. I didn't hear the news at the go with it, but I was told it was to say that. Now, the other thing I was going to mention, Your Worship the Mayor, on the Royal Wedding Day, at Prince William and Katie, we closed the High Street for a street party. It's on the 2nd of June, 3, 4, 5, 6. From the 2nd of June to the 6th of June, it's an national holiday. We need permission to close the High Street, but that's a big street party. Hopefully, the weather will be okay.
You come tomorrow night to the advisory committee meeting, so it's exactly what we'll be talking about now. Ted Allen, who's one of the parents, has been publicising the things that we're doing. They were thrilled to find out about streaming on the session day because there was only one other thing happening, I think, in Sunset, which was people that day. And we are also discussing whether or not we might put on some form of celebration around St George's Day to mark the connection between the patron saint of England and Glastonbury. Some of you may know the legend. And again, we are looking for that long bank holiday weekend to be quite spectacular in Glastonbury, with perhaps inspiration being drawn from the St. Peter's Trail. I shall say no more about that. Do come along. If you have any ideas that you might contribute to towards the Glastonbury celebration, do come along tomorrow night to the advisory committee.
Just to mention very quickly, St. George's Day is Lake John Branson's birthday.
Even more wonderful. Thank you very much. So we now have this in, isn't that perfect? Now to ask the bodies
Thank you, Worship. Well, as you alluded to, we start with some really sad news that our chairman, Robert Richards, actually passed away. This month, he's done absolutely sterling work. He sort of got co-opted as chairman of the town's plan. I don't think he really quite realised what he let himself in for when he started it. But I mean, working with the team at Mended, we actually succeeded in getting more money than any other town per head in the country. So it's a credit to him and the work that he did, and I think we should be very grateful. The work is going ahead at an incredible pace, and the amount of stuff that is coming through, I just cannot believe. I think we've finished the strategic case. We're now tackling the management case on the Bailey's project. There will be a whole exhibition in Town Hall on the 25th of February, so mark it in your diaries because that should give you a much better insight of the 12 projects then. I'm also grateful to the Town Clerk because she's now secured funding from Mendit for Melissa for 2 days a week to help with the development of the Town View Fund for the Bailey project. It'd be the largest project. And we feel there's a crossover because of her role as climate emergency officer, because the link is tangible with trying to reclaim the Bailey building and put that back into life. And I also hope that there's going to be some crossover because what she learns, because that's in the first projects, what she learns in that we should be able to then use for the other projects as they come through. So as we build up the business cases, we should be able to see some of the work we want to go back over it again. So there is huge amounts of work, and again, I know I've said it before, but it is just such a pleasure at the death knell and early amendment that suddenly we've got officers who really want to work with us rather than try and cause us problems. And I can't speak highly enough of Julia Sullivan and Jen Sharp because they are really working on our behalf to try and get this through. a huge learning curve for them as well, because nobody's really seen how this is working before. The government's green book has been altered, and how that actually plays out to develop the business plans that we're working on is a learning curve for everybody, but it's a learning curve for the officers as well. And there is a new officer, well, he's not a new officer, but he's brought in to help with the sort of procurement side of it. And again, usually officers tell you you can't do things, and then he seems to be trying to find solutions for us that are workable within the town scheme. So it's actually a pleasure to work with people like that and try to find solutions and make it, rather than that, constantly with working against the brick wall. So I think actually it's progressing well. You've all got an opportunity to come and have a look at the site for that for yourself on the 25th, and I encourage everybody to come. I'm happy to try and answer any questions.
Thank you, Your Worship.
In the Bailey's building, we know it's very touristic, apart from the chimney. What about the other side? Is that going to be revamped, refurnished, or whatever? I heard there was going to be possibly a museum in there.
It's all grade 2 listed, the whole complex. So that means all the ancillary land to it as well as included in the listing. And that does constrain us somewhat in terms of what we're going to be able to do. And it's also going to be challenging in terms of how we're going to make it as carbon neutral as we can. But that's why I'm keen to get Melissa on board, because I think that with her expertise, that's going to help. But the plan is to make it an exemplar sort of regeneration of somewhere that can employ people again. People will be able to go there and earn a living. But not only that, we want them to actually, we want to get a double win out of this. So we want to employ as many local people as possible. We want to train as many people as possible in the sort of reuse of an old building and repairing of an old building, so they can then use those skills elsewhere. So it's a bit of training in some recycling.
Here, you obviously work tirelessly to support and encourage and develop the Bailey's building on behalf of the clerk, and you know that. We also know that behind the scenes there are a number of issues which are either being discussed or being resolved, which are pertinent to the public and particularly to the councillors around the table. You haven't mentioned at all whether there will be a Glastonbury environment centre in the Bailey's building. We know that you advocate that there will be lots of units for small businesses, but you've always indicated that there was a problem with anything else and anything other than small units for business purposes. However, Medbit, in their wisdom, required at the time that the town investment plan was written, that there would be a space allocation in the Bailey's building for the Glastonbury Forest Centre. And it went as far as to actually put a figure on what that space would look like. So can you just outline for us now what your intentions are? Because by now we would have expected to have an architect and surveyor work on the Bailey's building in order to plan for the sustainable approach, the Centre for Excellence approach, and certainly in terms of the green planning, that would be required at a very early stage. So can you explain?
Your Worship, if I may interject if I may. The subject of the effect when discussion was part of a confidential session of a meeting last Friday, and I would bear caution on those who might be responsible to the and not breaking conferences.
Thank you. Councillor, you feel that you're able to respond after first?
Yes, I would say that the plan is to create space within the building which complies with the listed building consents to be as user-friendly and as flexible as it possibly can be to create space that hopefully will be carbon neutral, that could be used by any organisation, can come forward with a proper business plan to be filling those spaces. That's basically the picture of Bert, and it's never been different. There are lots of people who've expressed interest. Mendip have expressed various interests that they think might work, but it's all got to work together within the confines of the building. We will be employing specialist architects. We have got an architect who's well, he worked on the Royal Life Museum. He's done work at Kestercombe House, so he's aware of how you make old buildings work for you. But the spaces and how they're occupied is really open to people coming forward with sound business plans to be able to put in the spaces.
Yeah, okay, so that really tells us very little as regards my question. I think the reality of this is that a decision has been made, a deal has been done, and none of us are going to be party to that in this, at least at this particular time. My team of 16 has been working on the project for many years and put forward the project in good faith as a town deal project, but being treated shabbily and appallingly. Go further, I think it's unethical and it's possibly verging on illegal as to what's been happening. And I think we could safely say that that project is either dead, will not take place, or Mendip are going to attempt to run the project themselves, which is not what the Town Deal Fund was put together for. The Town Deal Fund was to support community groups who have established themselves as bona fide organisations, who have plans which have, in our case, were reported on and have been the subject of many comments over the years in this town hall and various exhibitions and so on. And we've had a lot of support from elected members, previous town mayors, and a number of other important people around the county. So I feel that we're not getting anywhere with the discussions. We've been dictated to, which is never a good thing for Glastonbury organisations to be dictated to. Because we know that Glastonbury, its culture, is one that doesn't quite like the top-down approach. And whilst the top-down approach is very much evidence in this particular case, we've also heard that whilst this project has been focused on, other projects will be focused on later on, or have already been included in a focus spotlight to look at how Mendip could employ consultants to take them over as well. So I'm sounding a really serious alarm. I'm not happy with Councillor Tucker, who is, I think, being dishonourable in not having supported this project from the very beginning. Our relationship goes back many years when the Bauhaus was to be occupied by the University of Western England, together with a consortium, to be used as a garment centre at Green College, and that was taken from under us, and that wasn't possible because it was apparently subject to a confidentiality order. Yes, you're smiling, I know, because you told me that we couldn't discuss it longer, despite the fact that we knew we were a valid organisation wanting to take that forward. And now we appear to come back to a position where this has happened again, where we were told by Mendip that because there wasn't an open space where a new build took place, that the opportunity to use the Bailey's building would be there. We requested 900 square metres, that was approved, went into the town master plan, and now it seems, because the organisation Convert has got other plans, And because, as you well know, you said to me, we didn't sign anything and therefore it's not legal. So by not signing anything at that time, it's not legal, and therefore you have chosen to take your plans forward and disregard the plans of other organisations. So we have lost a really valuable project in all of this. I have got people who are so inflamed, if you can call it that, by these decisions, that they're wondering really whether they've spent their time wisely over all these years. And I myself have been ill with all of this pressure and anxiety that's come about. And it hasn't been helped by other players in this process either, which I won't name at the moment. But I'm just putting up a flag, a warning flag, to all of you who work in the voluntary projects, that once Mendip has got them listed, that it feels that it thinks control to the extent that it can take them over if it so wishes. We think, reading between the lines, that this is a process of violence, where the project money is being redirected to other projects. One of the projects being a new project called Green Infrastructure, which has now got over £1 million worth of investment gone into it. And, maybe that is legal, maybe it's not legal, it's try. But it's clear that something very dodgy is going on, and you know what it is, and you're not saying.
I think that we have to be mindful of the kinds of bias that the information related to the solar, what we're talking about is the confidential section. I'm not sure that we pursue this line anymore, but I think we should give very full account of the position as we see it.
Your Worship, there's two projects of the Town Hill Fund which the Town Council is leading on. One being the Travel and Transport Programme, Park and Ride, and the other is the conversion of St. Dunstan's House to a community public well-being centre. As you are very familiar, we have an advisory group committee that meets as and when required to discuss the various progress and ideas that are going on. I'm now in a position, Your Worship, to need to call another meeting of that advisory committee this week. Please don't underestimate how much time it's taking. I reckon I'm on this 3 full days a week and more at the moment. It's taking up a lot of time, which is great because it's all for the good of the town. But Thursday I'm meeting with our architect again, and on Friday I'm meeting with the architect from the Abbey and our own architect. So I would like to have a discussion next week, and I'm looking at the already asked consent of the chairman of Common Assets. I'm hoping we can call a meeting after the planning committee meeting next Tuesday evening. So I'm going to propose we bring planning forward by half an hour and 6:30, and then run immediately into an advisory committee meeting of Common Assets to deliver the town fund. That's okay.
I'm looking to Councillor Smiley for planning. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure that we will continue. Thank you very much. So now we move on to mayor's announcements. In addition to attending 2 of the screenings of the film on the Ascension Day, I also attended the High Sheriff and Lord Lieutenant's service at Wells Cathedral for marking of Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee Day. A tremendous achievement by Her Majesty, and I'm delighted to attend. I'm very pleased to say that the High Sheriff and Lord Lieutenants are all very interested in Glastonbury and have been eager to come along to things such as the Captain of the Home Floor, which we have in December. And I met with one of the Deputy Lieutenants yesterday, all blurry in one long day, to whom Edward Adams, who you may know as High Sheriff in 2016, and Edward is now a lieutenant, and was very interested in talking about whether or not Glastonbury, there's no way Glastonbury to explore World Heritage Status. And this is something that has garnered quite a bit of support from various people around Somerset with a view to maybe exploring this again. I know that was attempted a few years ago, and I know councils talked about this before. So it's not something that's going away, it keeps on coming back, and it has a great support. So members of the community in Bath who already have full text status are prepared to come and speak to Glastonbury at some point about exploring this again. And it's something that I just wanted to raise now. The other thing I wanted to mention was the United Community Authority heading swiftly towards us. The chair of Streets Parish Council and I have discussed many times the merit in a joint approach to look at the future, as it were, and what we as two fairly large parish councils might be able to do together better as the unitary authority comes forward. It's purely, of course, an exercise in what if, but it is useful for us to talk about that. And we held last week the second joint meeting of councillors in this chamber, and those of you who came to the first session and the second session know that some of the things that are coming out is issues that we believe will be pertinent to what they call the local community networks, which will come out of the new infrastructure. Every parish area will be part of the local community network. In Street and Glastonbury are so close, it would be almost impossible that we're not in the same local community network. So, parks, we both have park areas, we have those parks, and grounds work is something that perhaps we could work better together with. That's something that came out and said. Mental health support and well-being. This is a big one for both councils. We're both aware of the impact that has happened through the COVID-19 lockdown, etc. And we discussed the health and well-being health that we're talking about here in the house, and how there may be outreach from that goes to streets, and the way that we could work it for the benefit of both our communities and the satellite communities around us. Youth provision. Street Parish Council also supports youth provision through YMCA in streets, and that's something we do here. So that's something we can combine and look at how it could work together with Brunel, YMCA, or other providers. The other thing that was quite interesting to talk about in relation to the film that we done on Friday was building local resilience, particularly to flooding and the issues that may come along from emergency and emergency and emergency planning. And of course, this has been talked about between this council and those kind of emergency planning sessions before, and the street house, but maybe Americans were coming together so close, work together on a joint plan so that we're working and pooling those resources should something untoward happen, flooding on the walls, etc. And part of that is also building our resilience. And of course, we are fortunate enough to have a resilience officer in Melissa, and this is something that is really quite interested in how they can perhaps start to engage with this quite serious issue. Finally, we decided that we should perhaps form a joint advisory committee on something quite separate from all the big issues, to look at putting a contract somewhere in Street or Glastonbury. The young people of Street are very interested in contract, and we know that Glastonbury, that our Jubilee Park, well named for this year, has all of the landscaping for a cycle routes. If we add some tarmac to the cycle route we have there, furthermore we have a contract. And so that we would like to form a Glastonbury and Street, or Street Glastonbury contract joint advisory. And I would like to raise here where any of the council side of the table contract, which is a park or, of course, cycle routes, which is very popular now for the future. So everybody cares to be part of that. Andrew, Lindsay, and Mike, and myself. Thank you very much, and we'll send that information to Laura, and we'll get on. It could turn out to be the Platinum podcast. Thank you very much. Communications and that. So,
So, Your Worship, next Saturday, this coming Saturday, you are all encouraged and will be welcome to come to the Bottom Wirral Hill, where we're going to plant some oak trees in memory of John Rumsden. So we've got the guards all made, the trees are being collected, courtesy of the Town Council, and we're going to start at about 10 in the morning, so we can do with people coming on with their spades, and with a willingness to get stuck in. I don't anticipate it taking much more than the morning if we get enough people. I know John's two sons are going to come as well, so it should be quite an enjoyable morning, and I think it's a good, well, it's part of the Queen's canopy, but I think it's really appropriate for John to continue that row of oak trees along the side of Street Road, from where they finished, where the old pond used to be that was recently filled in, through to basically the very same said pump track.
And how many trees?
17.
All
oaks.
And that's Saturday?
Saturday, 10 o'clock.
And not everyone?
We'll probably park in Redgrave. Well, we'll need to just check out Sunday and rubber, make sure that's okay. Saturday morning should be okay. Then walk across the road.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, just need to get it in somewhere. This Fair fortnight, the 21st of February to the 6th of March. I have got some let you know. We haven't actually had a meeting, but I have informed the town clerk that I'm getting some leaflets. So I should do something about it. I believe there's another rep from years before.
Christine Fire. Yes.
Who's the other rep?
I think Christine.
Not Paul.
Paul has been involved in that.
No.
I haven't heard any information.
No, I have been getting information. So let people know.
Thank you. I would just like to share with you the tremendous surge of interest that there has been in the Repair Cafe, and now dates are set up alternate months in St Edmund's Hall on Saturday mornings and St Benedict's Church, because there are over 25 people who are involved in this, either as facilitators or administrators or cafe or repairers. And the next date is the 19th of February in St Edmund's Hall on Windmill Hill. The dates are on for Windmill Hill are on the website, and both ones for St Benedict's Church Hill on that, and there is also a notice in our new notice board at the front of the building. And so that is very good. And there is a county-wide look through those who have been successful with cafes, which I think I know is David Wedmore, with their guiding, who are looking to explore other areas where there can be items recycled and reissued and updated. So it's a bit vague in notice. It's very encouraging.
The matter of Catherine Thorne's been raised asked me about when it's going to be replanted. So I would have got it down the agenda.
Yes, I wonder whether that's something that any councillors might know more about than others.
I'd like to explore the possibilities of that.
It would seem fitting in the past of the year to perhaps have a street replanted on Royal Hill.
Your Worship, I've now contacted Kew Gardens on 3 occasions, Morgana West was within the fire drive myself, and I'm not getting any response from the names that are at Kew. That's the line we're taking, is trying to get one of the original transplanted holy thorns back, but just Kew Gardens have gone very quiet on us. I don't know what to do about that.
So,
I'd like to suggest that all of the specimens of Cretaceous Monogena Bioflora are original specimens. They all originate from the Holy Land, and we have a very good local supplier. And I see no reason why we shouldn't approach the local supplier and provide our own specimen. It doesn't necessarily have to be from the 1952 version, since they all relate back 51. They all relate back to a date far earlier than that, through their genealogy and DNA.
well, I'm not sure which council committee the whole thought might come under. Maybe in blue, I don't know. But it seems that there are two issues related to this. One is that we would very much like to have a holy thought in the gardens and and we were hoping that will be one of the limbs that was rescued from the original 1951 issue. The other issue, I think, that lots of folk are very interested in is whether or not one we replanted on Muriel Hill, and various ones that the landowners are favourable to this, but I'm unsure of the way forward. So, do we need to have an item on our agenda to deal with this, or is it something that we can talk about briefly now and have an action? So,
well, can I suggest we've got a card for it as well that came from that there that we rescued, and it's down in our shed, so we've got a briefly iron card for it. Can I suggest that we perhaps make it as one of the ceremonies in the Jubilee? Be appropriate, wouldn't it? And so I think Mike's probably right. We can't get them back from Kew, and I don't know, we might have to do a radio party or something. but we could actually, I'm sure, get a reasonably good specimen from somewhere or other to put and plant. But it would be nice if we could get the ones that were taken from and get them back from Kew. And I'm just wondering, didn't one of our advisors on the England committee, what other didn't one of them work at Kew?
You go as well?
Yeah, I got a feeling one of the others did an apprenticeship at Kew or worked at Kew.
I think you're right.
So they might have a contact there that we haven't. Would that be worth just pursuing?
That would be worth pursuing. Chair, may I suggest that we compose a formal letter from the mayor's parlour to whoever is the head person at Kew, and I could request as mayor that they advise us on how we can get back the trees that they have.
Because we want to plant.
But I think it needs to be a letter rather than an email. They can't ignore as well. Then we go to the head person there. We can find other people move.
Just to remind everyone, after the one that was vandalised, we did plant another one on Muriel Hill. And the Conservation Society, at Norris expense, got a big cage. And I was there when it was planted with Rebecca. It was Easter time, it was Easter Sunday. It was only there for 10 days when the sun snapped it off. 2/3 of it snapped off. I've got the home snapped off press in a book or something somewhere. So if we plant another one there, I fear there'll be vandalism again.
Well, I think we have to trust in the goodwill of people, rather than let the vandals win. So I think we need to move forward to try and reinstate the truth. And let's hope there are no more Cromwell people around to do the good of the truth. So we can make that happen. Thank you. Any other correspondence?
Sorry, our correspondence, yes, Your Worship, I'll ask please, if I may. To start with some good news is that the application for funding of Medical District Council for Fisher's Hill, that money has now been received, so £1,000 has come in towards that project. Fair team to congratulate you for that. The second thing, I have an email this morning from Liam Gone, that's Curtis Bacon's team over in Mendip, with reference to the Public Space Protection Order. I have circulated that, Your Worship, by email to all councillors, and as we mentioned earlier in this evening's meeting, is if you wish to respond individually, and your own right to perfectly do so, my question is, do you want to have a discussion at some point about the County Council's response to this?
So this is the response to the formal consultation?
Yes.
Where is the consultation?
It has 20th of March, so you could have an item on next County Council's agenda if you wish.
I think that's a good idea, let's do that.
Okay,
but councillors can make their own representation and all that.
Okay, and finally, again, we received this morning from Councillor Google. Lindsay, you may wish to speak to this yourself because it's the response to the letter you want. Do you want to carry on?
Councillors won't have in front of them the letter.
No,
That's what you need to make sure everybody sees it. But I mean, I wrote a letter to the MP because I feel very strongly about the housing issue. So it was quite a personal letter because it needs to be adapted to being from the Town Council in more Town Council terms. So I haven't really got my head around that. Partly because I feel very strongly about it. But it's difficult to be dispassionate about such an issue. So somebody else might help me out a bit. Or I might have a tackle it. But maybe my letter can be copied into all councillors.
That might be a good start.
Yeah.
You're asking for us to help.
Well, yes, it needs to be put in Town Council terms because I've written it in quite personal terms to the MP.
Did you send it verbally to the MP?
Yes.
And have you had a response?
No, I haven't.
And we talked about it again.
Yes.
Any other correspondence?
No,
so, councillors, someone mentioned earlier. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Correspondence of a letter posted on social media concerning the issue around St. Ben's by-election. It mentioned that they wrote to the clerk. Then the clerk currently received that letter, or is it someone playing a game on social media?
I thought we covered this earlier.
What's the letter?
The letter around inquiring out his resignation and concerning that obviously if you'd have waited a bit longer we wouldn't be in a position of by-election or co-opted, and it's on social media and make an accusation that the mayor had approached a member of the public to be co-opted even before he resigned. So I think that should be. So the clerk has not received this letter?
Who's the letter from?
Rick Cook. Well, it's on the social media. I think it, well, it should be raised at another.
Yes, I would be delighted to if Mrs. Cook would come and speak to council about this. because this information is obviously extremely, so excellently resourced, and he knows more about me than I do.
Well, that's why I brought the attention, because it was addressed to the clerk, or whether he addressed it to the clerk, or he actually put it on social media. And it does. You know, I think it's best for people to read it themselves, to,
Well, yes. Have you received any communication from, Your Worship? So we won't really relate this to
okay.
I can, let me assure this council, my preference personally would always be to go to election. My personal preference would be to go to election. I think that it is not the role of councillors to comment on whether or not people should or shouldn't call for an election, but every member of the ward who is not on the electoral register has the right to return to that and stimulate and say, I would like an election. And I think that is, I don't know if that's right, and who is the so I have absolutely not talked to anybody about them being co-opted to council without knowing whether or not they're
so I think it's pertinent then if I find this letter, if it's still on social media, and then forward it on to the clerk, I think that'd be best way forward.
if you feel that's so, you may do so. But I would welcome you to come to this council and inform me more about my activities. That would be very good to know exactly what it's saying.
Yes, so going back one, this revised document about the PSPO that's going out for public consultation, how do we get to see it?
It's open to us on email.
It will be emailed.
It has been already circulated on the agenda for the next full next week.
It has been already circulated, so I should have it in my email box. Thank you.
Perhaps our strategy should be mandate script course advice before doing anything else in his life. Any ideas or preferences?
Just now, what do you say?
That's not a party. I feel, Your Worship, I'm sure many councillors will agree with me, we should honour the late Jeffrey Ash because he brought many, many tours here from all around the world. I knew him well. I had the honour of doing the freedom of Glastonbury and the copy of the seal of Glastonbury, not the real one. And I feel we ought to put something in the press in honour of him. Because, as I say, he's done much for the tourist industry of this town.
That's a very wise thought.
Your Worship, if I may, I have written to Derek Ashton and I've had a letter back, or sorry, a phone call back, thanking us profusely for our comments and good wishes to there. I've also put a small article on our website, which why he was a freeman, and so I already have created that one, Worship, it's already newsworthy.
Thank you. I think that if we have put something out on the website, then that probably suffices.
One thing, if I may, I got fond memories of this. Jeffrey was very fond of his cat, a very large cat, and they climbed a tree called Fibre Day there, and it's so high we couldn't take it down. The telephone went, you may recall this, the telephone went indoors, he went indoors. I got out a high pressure hose and hit this cat, and I got it all the way down so it hit the ground and shut off and Jeffrey came out and said, "Oh, where's my cat?" I said, "It's gone up there somewhere."
Did you ever tell us what actually happened?
Your Worship, unusually is there's unusually needs to be written and drafted on the Somerset campaign. That's piece of it.
There was something mentioned earlier on in the meeting.
That's it.
Yeah, the press release was recommended about the position over by-elections. Correct? Yes. We still would like to see that.
Was for you guys as council to decide how you
Yeah, we put it
how you
forward.
want to do it. We might done. So how we, it's up to you to one decide if there is wrongdoing and two to rectify it whatever way you see fit. My recommendation is press release, but I'm a member of the council, so it's up to you.
So it's a press release to explain how by-election should normally be managed.
I think at minimum we should probably write to those people who have been contacted to apologise for probably misguiding them. Whether it needs to be a full press release to the whole all public, I don't know. So
I think what I would ask as a department with the person who wrote is, whether you would be happy to write to the folk that you've written to just explain to them that this council would fully support a by-election if one was called, and that it is not the intention of this council to dissuade anybody from calling for an election. I think that might be prudent.
Your Worship, I retracted the term misguiding vote because what was in the letter was absolutely as it is. It describes the process. There was no misguiding in that.
I think that this starts to go down to objectivity, subjectivity, and everybody's going to have an opinion, I suppose, of how they understand what's being said to them. But I think we need to be clear that we as a council fully support the democratic process, and I hope that our communications would not discourage anybody from calling an election if they so wish, and that is if we uphold their right to do so. Something along those lines there that that feel right on behalf of the councillors. And it may be prudent to put a intro paragraph that the letter and the Facebook comment did come up for discussion. Councillors decided to ask you to write. Would that be awesome?
So we agreed earlier that we would do a press release about the grants of 10,000 available for the Green Home Scheme.
Yeah, I think some of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, actions relating to the meeting.
Plenty of them this time, Worship. Bear with me. An action for me to liaise with the police and inquire if the mental health support team is present when they are attending to vulnerable people. There's
in relation to the
current There's an action to reinstate or speak to Sergeant Darcy with the aim of reinstating the council discussions with the manager. There's an action for me to write to the manager of Papa John's and copy others into that about the parking and whatever issues are there. There's an action for me to produce some signs to put in obvious places around the town informing we are attending to the town. There's an action for me to
I think you need to take people to the third side of that.
Okay. An action for me to ask Melissa to circulate her annual report to all councillors. And an action for me to have a presentation with Melissa about undergoing whole track time carbon literacy training and a report about anything that.
It's the impact assessment.
It's impact.
Okay.
And that she takes, rather than training, she actually undergoes the action of doing it.
Okay. And finally, to contact you again to see if that's okay.
That's right. How we run name all that and we'll send it by and
okay.
Just to qualify that, I think the county council still use websites, and so what's made it for ourselves now. I'm wondering which sites the county council still display, and it'd be happy to say that the town can't compare.
we need to say that we have passed legislation as a council that we as a council do not use council herbicides and pesticides on public areas. We don't, I think my only conscious knowledge of a Somerset-based intervention with, like I say, which is quite remarkable, has been the water course to address certain stuff that's going in greens, which as far as yeah.